I think a lot of people realize this, but a lot of people don't. You know, my family is very conservative and was like, I thank God red pilled them on the Zionism. Like I was able to have conversations with them, and now they're not pro Zionist anymore. And my mom sometimes like growing up Zionist, I was raised Zionist. Now sometimes like Bob, you're being too hard on the Jews. So
She's the
which is
anti-Semite of the
refreshing
year.
because I was like the crazy one that was like, oh, Thaddeus dares criticize the Jews, and now I'm like, no, like they're not fundamentally evil, mom. Like they're just
Right.
people, like the religion, but they're like,
Right.
yeah.
The ism.
Anyways, I've done some research into Vance's past, his connections with Peter Thiel and Palantir. That stuff is super sketchy to me. Like really, I find it easier to come up with a narrative to explain what Trump's doing than I do for JD Vance. Like he kind of creeps me out. Like, is it possible he's good? Maybe, but at this point, I'm kind of, yeah, I'm very skeptical. And if they have to do like Trump has to be bad to get Vance elected, I'm like, no, you should be able to. Like Trump got elected. If he would have done what he did, he got elected by being truthful. But then it turns out he's lying. Vance should not have to play psyop mind games like that. He should be able to speak truth. So they shouldn't. Trump could just do a non-militant presidency, and then Vance could not do one, and we would all love him and vote for him. That's easy. But with Trump, what kind of going back to my main thread I'm weaving here. If you can't take out Israel directly, then kind of my theory is you goad Iran into doing it.
Right.
And one of the things that's happened is so the outer narrative cannot, just like you were saying, the outer narrative, we're going in, troops on the ground, all this stuff. What's actually happened? Again, like let's look at actual facts of what's happened. The troops are being sent home. The troops are like a bunch of troops are sent home. Like when this started, at the point it started, a huge flood of them were sent on leave. What? Like that doesn't make sense. You should be getting more. We're worried we're going to be drafted, but the actual happenings are they're sent home. Who is Iran attacking? A handful of bases, a handful of like destroyer ships, but it's Israel. Israel's being attacked. And then there's this whole discussion of Schrodinger's Netanyahu. Is he alive or is he dead? And it's like,
that's weird.
Objectively, again, facts here, they have put out verified AI videos about him. Maybe he's alive, and maybe they'll do a little psyop thing where he's alive, and then they gaslight people for pointing out that they made fake AI videos of him.
Do you remember when the same thing happened to Joe Biden, like the last 6 months of his presidency, where he wasn't seen for like a month, and there was weird stuff, like he was on a phone call, but it's clearly AI or manipulated. Like everyone thought he was dead. Like, oh, they're just pretending he's alive.
Yeah,
and then he showed back up, and then he was like, "I'm pro Mag. I'll put the hat on." And it was like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, and the fact that he looks so like he's not the same person, I think is very fair. Like no one has proven it's not Joe Biden, but it's like, yeah, there's reasonable grounds to be extremely suspicious whether he got replaced at the end there or something like that. But
Slow bro, wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be fun if Patriots in control? Wouldn't that be a fun head canon?
Yes. Yeah, living the dream. Many such cases of wishing and hoping. Yeah.
Whenever I have conversations like this, I always am brought back to when I was first becoming Orthodox. I wasn't even a catechumen yet. The second priest I met was his catechism was like all politics that day for whatever reason, and it was like in the height of COVID during 2020, and he was talking about like Obama's presidency and what he did in Iraq and all this stuff, and he was talking about the CIA's dealings and all this stuff, and somebody was like, "Father, like, how do you not despair?" And he's like, "Well, you haven't been Orthodox that long, so." I mean, you get to a certain point where you look at all this and you're like, it's kind of fun. I mean, yeah, like people are dying, it's like affecting everybody's lives, but it's the roller coaster we're on. So,
yeah, there's a kind of flipping to the spiritual side of it all, because I like talking politics, but it always, and might be where we go anyways. it always turns into a discussion of the spiritual side, what the demons are doing. As I love the parallels between psyops and the way the demons work. It's 1-to-1. And it makes sense when you think about it that way, where it's like, oh yeah, because the globalists are in bed with the demons, but it's like all manipulative humans, even if it's not like they're straight up Satanist occultists, like which a bunch of them are, it's the same games. There's only the side of light and the side of darkness. And so if you study how like in my therapy work, in my coaching, I messaged you about, like, I sometimes deal with women who are like married to a narcissist, escaped a narcissist, whatever, like severe, real narcissist, not like the meme. Like there's all these women asking, is my boyfriend a narcissist, to chat GPT? And it's like, no, like you're always going to get a yes, because every woman who asks that is like hoping for a yes, and it knows it, and it's gotten programmed.
Yeah, as soon as a woman asks that about our man, it's over.
Yeah. We did a whole stream on AI. But like actual narcissists, and when you study how they work, and then you go study how the swamp works and Israel and the CIA work, and then you go study like 4th century texts on how the demons work, it's exactly the same patterns. It's all the same. And so that's where that's like my favorite value now to find in politics. And then from there, you go to what are the solutions, and we're pointed back to the spiritual life. But also one of the other lessons, if we're following this thread from like politics to what's gone wrong to how it goes right in Orthodoxy, politics also points to we don't realize that, coming as a former Protestant, my favorite way to criticize Protestantism, and like in a charitable way, is to call it malnourishing. Like it's charitable to them because they don't know that they're missing vitamins. They think it's kind of like, as a person with health issues, you think it's normal to be tired and depressed. And then you discover you are missing nutrients, or you have Lyme disease, all this stuff. And you're like, oh, I'm not a bad person because I have Lyme disease. I'm bad because, I eat too much, play too many video games, all these other sins.
It also gives you the space to go like Father Josiah Trenham hammers this a lot in his catechism, that there are true and good things and beautiful things in your heterodoxy. Like your Protestant church taught you about Jesus, not correctly, but they taught you about the Holy Trinity. They taught you about the Bible. Like these things are not wrong.
Yeah. And it kind of a medium length footnote here, because I always clarify this. Orthodoxy teaches fundamentally that all that exists is made by God, and it's good. And then evil, of course, as I think we all know, but like applying this, is always a twisting of good. It's actually very humiliating to evil that it can't come up with anything on its own. There was a saint who said, in God everything is new, but in sin and in the devil's work, everything is just repeated and uncreative. And he said, I love this line, I wish I remember which saint it was, but he said, "'Tis a pity there's no new sins." It's like that's the nature of evil. It's just these cheap, repetitive knockoffs. Whereas in heaven, we will learn infinitely. There'll be an infinite number of things to do. We will never get bored with God, with each other. Saint Demetrius Stanley says being one of the attributes of being made in the image of God is that we're actually infinitely deep. There's no bottom. And this is really key. Like psychology says there's a bottom. And if there's a bottom, behaviorism is true. Like if there's a bottom to you, you could just learn those pieces, calculate them out, and you're predetermined, like a set of dominoes. We're infinitely deep, and God is infinitely deep. And I think even when you look at creation, it's also infinitely deep. Every particle we discover, we go, well, what's that made out of? And there's more. What's that made out of? There's more. What's that made out of? And we're just like looking for the next layer of particles, because consistently, scientifically, that's what we keep finding, is that everything's made out of something else. And it's like that actually aligns really well with a Christian worldview, that this was world is an infinite playground. It's going to be remade as the new earth, the scriptures say. But like this was intended to be an infinite playground for infinite humans in communion with their infinite God. But evil is all this cheap knockoff and stuff. And so going back to the main part of my footnote here, we have to realize that anything we encounter that is false is made out of pieces of truth. And it can't not be. If you say there's such a thing as like a pure lie or pure evil, you're actually saying that evil and lies are ex nihilo. You're saying there's another God out there, like a demiurge or something. Because
the same thing when you have any kind of autonomous epistemology, like, oh, you don't need God for morality. Okay, you're saying morality is ex nihilo. You're saying that God, that morality is something outside of God's compass, that it is of itself.
Yeah, even if you go all the way to like Satanism, whereas every other religion is secretly and deceptively trying to make you your own God, and fill you with pride to varying degrees, sometimes more open. Satanism is outright honest, where it's just like, no, like we're here to be our own God. Do well what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And even then, their attempt to be their own gods is the seed that God planted. Even then, they can't escape God. It's humiliating, actually. Like, they want to be gods because God made every human being to want to be God. Their flaw, their perversion is trying to do it without God. But they still can't escape that nihilism, make your own meaning, is not real. You can't. You just make it out of your existing desires that God gave you. I want connection. I want joy. So I look to pornography and pleasure, all these cheap knockoffs. They can't actually make their own meaning. They can just rip off the stuff that God planted in them. So what this means practically, going back to kind of our main point, is that when you encounter falsehood, the more you know the truth, the more you know Christ, the more you should be able to find truth in anything. The more you should be able to do what Paul does in Acts 17 at the Areopagus. He looks at all these pagan god statues, which are demons, and he sees one that says to the unknown God, and he goes, oh, let me tell you about that guy. Like, we should be able to do that theoretically with anything. Now, whether God calls us to, that's its own thing. Like, maybe if I go towards Buddhism, I'm going to be tempted by it. So it doesn't mean in practice we should do that. But if I look at someone or a false worldview and I can't understand why they believe, if I can't understand why feminists are feminists, if I can't understand, I'm always the problem. 100% of the time, I'm the problem. It doesn't mean I have to go be invested in learning about every cause, like practically, but at least when I recognize, like, I have no idea why that person would ever believe something like that. That's actually always a sign that I'm not attuned to Christ. Because when the saint is attuned to Christ so perfectly, they look at anyone and they see the beauty there, they see the good, and then from that place, they see what's foreign, contrasting it to Christ, not being like, well, this is an error and that's the rules, and so you shouldn't do that. No, they're looking at the beauty. Metropolitan Anthony Bloom said that Christ, every person he met, he looked for the beauty in them and he lived to call out that beauty. And then from that context, you might say, go and sin no more, you brood of vipers. You might even be angry, but it's always from love and beauty first. And so, yeah, if we are actually living orthodoxy in the Orthodox phronema, we're like I've learned, I'm so thankful to my parents for introducing me to Christ. Back when they were, still didn't like Orthodoxy. Now they like it. They're Protestant, but they like Orthodoxy. But like many priests now are saying this, you should be thankful to Protestantism that God used it and like your pious mom and these pious pastors to teach you to seek Christ. Because how'd you end up Orthodox? Because they taught you that. So it should always be beauty first and then criticism second. Criticism, there's no orthodoxy without criticism. There's no orthodoxy without technical judgment, not judgment, the sin of condemnation. We have to distinct that word has two meanings. Judgment, looking down on someone, absolute sin, the worst sin will send you to hell. Judgment as assessing false teaching, absolutely required, absolutely vital. We don't have to do it every single time it arrives, but like an orthodoxy that doesn't have that, like an ecumenist mindset, also a path to hell. Second only to condemnation. Jesus didn't preach against ecumenism. He did preach against judgment, but ecumenism is like the close second. Wait,
are you saying that the unknown God doesn't mean that they weren't actually worshiping the one true God?
I think my answer is, I don't know. I think each person's different. I think some of those people, when they get to the last judgment, they're going to see Christ and they're going to go, this was the truth and love that I was looking to in my heart. And I didn't know it was Christ, but it was the good icon in the heart is truth, love, and humility. I could give a whole 30-minute talk on that. But like truth, love, and humility, every human heart is convicted of those things, and God will judge everyone by if they followed them. The Christian is the person who heard the gospel and went, that sounds like the Tao. Like the Taoist hears the gospel and goes, that sounds like the Tao. Like that sounds like the truth, the way, the love, like that I was looking towards in my heart that made me follow Taoism, made me follow Buddhism, made me follow this, whatever is the principled group of our culture. St. Nikolai Velimirovich talks about this. These figures, even though we rightly condemn these religions and criticize them, he talks about how these are also, by God's providence, prophets that prepared these societies to love virtue, so that when the gospel came, they recognized that this was the much higher and fullness of what they were longing for. So everyone will be judged by that according to orthodoxy. But if a person really is following that, when the gospel comes, there's a very, very, very high chance, with little bits of nuance, that that the sheep are gonna know his voice. They're gonna go, this was the guy. And so could some of those statue worshipers be that? I think some of them were. And then other ones, God willing, maybe that was the point where they changed. Maybe they were self-worshipers, but when they realized there might be a most high God, maybe in that, like some people, it's the moment they hear the gospel that they become convicted. And there's many stories of that too. And then there's, some who are hard-hearted. But, it's not our place to judge who those are specifically, but absolutely to declare that exists.